He never believed a single sentence could return to him like a storm. But destiny has a strange way of replaying the words we speak without thinking. I don't want kids. He had said it carelessly 3 years ago, without knowing that those 4 simple words would one day stand in front of him in the form of a small child with his eyes. But this story doesn't begin with him. It begins with a moment, quiet, unexpected, and dangerously unforgettable. She wasn't the kind of woman who demanded attention. Soft-spoken, calm, wrapped in the warmth of gentleness, she walked into his life like a whisper he didn't know he needed. He was a millionaire CEO, brilliant, disciplined, and constantly hiding behind deadlines and shining glass offices. She was the opposite: simple routines, quiet dreams, and a heart that believed in things he was too afraid to feel. Maybe that's why he fell. Slowly, silently, and more deeply than he ever admitted. The real hook: their story didn't break with a fight. It broke with a sentence he said on a night when exhaustion made him careless. A sentence that pushed her out of his apartment and out of his future. He didn't run after her. He thought she'd come back. He thought she always would. But she didn't, and life moved on, until fate brought him to a supermarket aisle where a little girl stood on her toes trying to reach a box. Blonde curls, blue eyes, his eyes. The same shape, same spark, same everything. That moment didn't just shake him, it shattered him. He walked out of that supermarket with his heartbeat stumbling, as if his own past had reached out and grabbed him by the collar. All night, he replayed the moment in his mind. The way the little girl smiled at him with complete innocence, the way her eyes reflected a shade he had seen every morning in his bathroom mirror. He tried to convince himself it was coincidence, but his chest tightened every time he remembered her tiny voice asking, "Can you help me?" It wasn't just familiarity. It was recognition. Something inside him whispered a truth he wasn't ready to accept. Sleep didn't come. His penthouse felt colder than usual, every room echoing with a silence that pressed against him like a weight. For the first time he realized how empty his life had become. Expensive art, glass walls, city lights. None of it filled the hollow feeling sitting in his chest. The more he tried to distract himself, the more her face appeared in his thoughts. But the real shock came later when he saw her again. This time, not alone. He froze when the little girl ran toward a woman who stepped out from behind a display shelf. A woman he once held as if she were the safest part of his life. She looked different now, tired yet stronger, carrying responsibilities he never stayed to share. And when she turned and their eyes met, he felt something inside him collapse. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She was simply distant, as if she had spent years teaching her heart not to expect anything from him. Then he asked the question that burned through him. She didn't avoid it. She didn't soften it. She simply said the truth. And the truth hit him harder than any lie ever could. The child was his. He stood there, stunned, as if the ground had tilted beneath him. Her words echoed in his mind long after they left her lips. His child. The weight of that truth settled somewhere deep, somewhere he hadn't felt anything in years. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, to apologize, to explain, yet nothing came out. She turned away gently, as if protecting a part of her heart he no longer had permission to reach. The little girl tugged her hand happily, unaware that her presence had just rewritten the course of his entire life. He watched them walk away, each step burning into him. That night he couldn't escape the ache in his chest. Why didn't she tell him? Why didn't she come back? But another question cut deeper. Would he have listened back then? Would he have been the man she needed? He knew the answer, and the truth hurt more than her silence. The next morning, he drove past the same store, almost against his own will. He didn't have a plan. He just needed to see them again. Needed proof that the moment hadn't been a dream. Instead, he found himself replaying their old memories. Quiet evenings, soft laughter, her head on his shoulder, the peace she brought him without ever asking for anything in return. He had once believed he had all the time in the world. But life had shown him how quickly time could run out. And then came the thought he couldn't escape. If fate brought them back once, it might bring them back again. He didn't know how, or when, or if she would ever let him near their daughter. But one thing was certain, he couldn't walk away this time. Not from her. Not from the little girl who unknowingly carried a piece of his soul. He didn't expect their next meeting to happen so soon, but life rarely follows the plans we make. 3 days later, he saw her again, this time at a small community park where families gathered after school. He had only driven by out of restlessness, trying to clear his thoughts. But the moment he saw the familiar golden curls bouncing near the swings, his heart stopped. She was laughing, carefree, her tiny shoes kicking the sand as she tried to climb up the slide. He stayed in his car at first, unsure, afraid of crossing invisible lines he had created years ago. But when the child slipped slightly and her mother rushed forward with worry in her eyes, something inside him pushed him to move. He stepped out slowly, quietly, almost afraid his presence would send her running. She noticed him immediately. Her posture stiffened, her hands gently steadying the child as if shielding her from something uncertain. He raised his hands slightly, not to reach but to show he meant no harm. The tension between them hung heavy in the air, a mix of old memories, unspoken regret, and the fragile beginnings of something neither of them understood yet. He approached like one steps toward a fragile truth. The girl saw him first, her face lighting up as if she recognized him from somewhere deep inside herself. She ran toward him with tiny steps, stopping just a few meters away, as if instinct told her this man meant something important. He knelt down, not touching her, just looking at her with a softness he didn't know he possessed. And she smiled again, that same gentle, innocent smile that had unraveled him days ago. He looked up at her mother, voice trembling with sincerity he never used before. "Please, let me be here. I don't know how, and I don't know if I deserve it. But I want to try," she didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either, and that silent permission felt like the first fragile doorway opening, one that could change everything. Something shifted that day in the park, something small, delicate, but powerful enough to keep him awake long after the city went quiet. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about meetings, contracts, or deadlines. He was thinking about a little girl's smile, and the woman who once trusted him with her heart. He wanted to fix what he broke, but he also knew apologies alone couldn't erase 3 years of silence. He had to show it, not say it, so he began appearing in small, careful ways, never pushing, never demanding. At the park bench, he brought an extra juice box just in case. When she carried grocery bags that looked too heavy, he silently stepped forward and took one. The child noticed him before the mother did. She would wave at him from a distance, laugh when he made silly faces, tug at her mother's sleeve whenever she saw him. Their connection grew naturally, like sunlight finding its way through closed curtains. But the moment that changed everything came unexpectedly. One evening, as the sky turned orange, the little girl tripped while running and scraped her knee. She didn't cry at first, just looked around, confused and hurt. Then she reached her arms out, toward him. Not toward the mother. Toward him. Her mother froze. He froze. Time froze. He stepped closer slowly, like approaching something sacred. She climbed into his arms without hesitation, burying her face into his shoulder as if she'd known him her whole life. His heart broke open in a way he didn't know was possible. He felt tiny tears on his shirt, felt her trust settling into him like a responsibility he suddenly couldn't live without. Her mother watched, eyes softening with something between pain and hope. She whispered, "She doesn't usually go to strangers." He held the child a little tighter, his voice raw. "I know, that's why I want to stop being a stranger." And in that moment, she realized he wasn't just trying. He was changing, and that was far more terrifying and far more promising than any apology he could have ever given. He didn't know how to ask for a place in their lives without sounding like he wanted too much, too fast. But every day he spent near them, every smile from the little girl, every guarded glance from her mother, it all pulled him toward a truth he could no longer deny. He wanted to be there. Not because of guilt, not because of responsibility, but because he finally understood what real love looked like, and he wasn't willing to lose it again. One evening, as rain painted the streets silver, he found her standing outside the store, holding an umbrella too small for both her and the sleepy child in her arms. Without a word, He approached and opened his own umbrella above them. She didn't move away this time. She let him stand beside her, close enough to feel the quiet ache between them. He wanted to speak, but she spoke first. Soft, careful. Why now? Why after all this time? Her question didn't carry anger. It carried fear. Fear of reopening a door she had locked for her own survival. Fear of letting him get close enough to hurt her again. He swallowed hard, choosing honesty over perfection. Because I didn't understand what I walked away from. I didn't understand what I lost. I can't change the past. But I'm here now, and I want to be here every day. For her, for you, if you'll let me. She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face the way someone searches for cracks in a fragile promise. He didn't hide. He let her see everything, the regret, the sincerity, the longing, the hope. The child stirred in her arms and reached toward him without hesitation. That tiny gesture felt like a verdict. She sighed, not out of frustration, but out of surrender to a truth she could no longer ignore. This won't be easy, she murmured. Life isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. He stepped closer, voice steady. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for a chance, she nodded slowly, cautiously. But she nodded. And that single movement felt like the beginning of something fragile, healing, and beautifully unfinished. As they walked together under the rain, the little girl's small hand reaching for both of theirs, he realized something. Sometimes life gives you a second chance, not because you deserve it, but because you finally learned how to hold it.